class, we are going to see the upcoming point of the chapter number 3, Money and Credit. Dear cadet, I request you all to please have a notebook and a textbook to copy down the important point from this presentation. First, chapter number 3, Money and Credit. In this, we had covered the lots of topics which were very interesting in the nature. As we had seen why money is called as the medium of exchange. Then we had seen the money and the modern forms of currency. After that, deposit with the bank. In that we had talked about the demand deposit, we had discussed about check and so on. So today in this presentation, we are going to see about the topic formal sectors of credit in India. We are going to talk and discuss about the formal sectors in India. Next, dear cadet, please have attention. Observe the graph number 1. All the cadets are requested to see the graph number 1. So graph number 1 speaks about the sources of credit per rupees 1000 of the rural household in India in 2012. So we are observing here other non-institutional agencies 2%, government 1%, cooperative society bank 25%, commercial banks 25%, other institutional, right? Then landlords, then relatives and friends. Okay? So by seeing this, you are understanding that the sources of credit per thousand of rural household in India, and the data is of 2012. We have seen in the above example that the people obtain the various source and the loan sources are what? Let's discuss. The various types of loans can be conveniently grouped as a formal sector loan and an informal sector loan. So here in this graph, or we can speak about the pie chart, we are observing the people are having the credit from the formal as well as the non-formal sources. So formal sectors of loan or informal sectors of loan. So here we are observing most of the people are taking the loans from formal as well as informal. Among the former are the loans from the banks and cooperatives. The informal lenders includes money lenders, traders, employer, relatives and friends, etc. The overall picture is speaking about the people are taking the loans from the formal as well as from the informal sources. So what are the formal and informal sources of loan or the sectors of loan? Place example. That can be the question for your examination in the MCQ form. Please note it. What are the formal and informal sources of loan? Place the example. Next, graph 1. You can see the various sources of credit to the rural household in India. Is more credit coming for the formal sector and the informal sector. The Reserve Bank of India supervises the functioning of formal sources of loan. So the loan from formal sectors, the RBI is supervising. For instance, we have seen that the banks maintain a minimum cash balance out of the deposit they receive. The RBI monitors the banks in actual maintaining the cash balance. So here, with the example you are observing how the formal sector is supervised the functioning of the formal sources of loan, and that is the Reserve Bank of India. Next, Similarly, the RBI sees that the banks give loans not just for profit making businesses, trades, but also to small cultivator, small scale industry, to small borrower, etc. As you have observed in other photograph, the woman is standing and asking for the loan, right? So periodically the bank have to submit the information to the RBI, and the full form of RBI is Reserve Bank of India. It can be asked in the form of MCQ on how much they are lending to whom at what interest rate. So here we are observing that periodically the bank have to submit the information to the Reserve Bank of India that how much they had lended money to whom and at what interest rate. Next, there is no organization which supervises the credit activities of lender in the informal sector. Dear cadet, here we are observing the informal sectors. There is no organization is here which is supervising the credit activities of the lender in the informal sector. They can lend at whatever interest rate they choose. There is no one to stop them from using unfair means to get their money back. You can observe here in the formal and in informal sector what are the merits and demerits. Compared to the formal lender, most of informal lender charge a much higher interest on loan. Thus, the cost to the borrower of informal loan is much higher. I hope so the formal and informal sources of loan is clear to you. Moving further, you observe this photograph. Something is written at the top. Please read it. Sorry for that. But why should a bank want us to have a higher income? This is the story of the farmer, right? Let's have a discussion in the further concept. Higher cost of borrowing means a large part of earning of the borrower is used to repay the loan. Hence, the borrower have less income left for themselves, as we saw for Shamal in Sonpur. Already I placed this for your homework purpose. You did in an excellent way and you have sent it your answer. Thank you to those who have sent me. In recent cases, the high interest rate for borrowing can mean that the amount to be repaid is greater than the income of the borrower. So, in certain cases, the high interest rate for the borrower can mean that the amount to be repaid is greater than the income of the borrower. Now it's clear how this loan is going to make their life into be worst. This could lead to increase in the debit, as we saw for the Rama in Sonpur and the debit trap. Also, people who might wish to start an enterprise by borrowing may not do so because of the high cost of borrowing. So here, with the examples, it is clear that we are taking loan from informal sector or formal sector, which is the better. But the people, they are taking loans from informal sectors and they are in debit trap. When you are going to have your live classes, we are going to discuss about why the people are choosing the formal and informal sectors of the loan. So in a very clear sentence, I want to tell you about that. It's a matter of only the situation. in which situation you are. At the night, somebody is met with the accident. You want a quick operation, and doctor is asking a high amount of money. At that time, you are going to borrow the money from your relatives, family members, and so on. You are not going to the bank and to have the loan and to repay it, right? For that particular purpose, the people used to take the loans from the family members and so person. Moving further, for these reasons, bank and the cooperative needs to lend more. They would lead to higher income, and many people could then borrow the cheaply for a variety of needs. They could grow crops, do business, set up small scale industries, etc. They could set up new industries or trades in goods. Cheap and affordable credit is crucial for the country's development. So here, in a very simple word, it is clear that the formal sector has to take the lead, right? I hope so the differentiated between the formal and informal sectors of the loan is clear to you. Next, graph number 2. Please observe. After that, we will discuss. Graph number 2 of the loan taken by the rural household. What percentage was loan and what percentage was informal? So here we are talking about what percentage of formal loans and what percentage of informal. Poor household, household with few assets, well-off household and rich household, right? So by the color indication you can go for the purple is talking about the formal. The bluish one is talking about the informal sector. So the poor household, they will always go for the informal. The rich one, as you are observing here, 90%. I hope so you have observed this pie chart or graph. Next, formal and informal credit. Who gets what? Graph number 2 shows, as you have observed the graph number 2. So what the graph number 2 is speaking? Let's understand. Formal and informal sources of credit for people in rural area as well as in the urban area. So the people are divided into 4 groups, from the poor to rich as shown in the figure, and you can see that 85% of the loans were taken by the poor household in the urban areas are from informal sources. Compare this with the rich urban household. What do you find? So you are finding, please see here, poor household and rich household. These are all the cases of the urban cases. Only 10% of their loans are from informal sources, while 90% are from the formal sources. A similar pattern is also found in the rural areas. The rich households are availing the cheap credit from formal lenders, where the poor household have to pay a large amount of borrowing. What does all this suggest? First, the formal sector still meets only about half of the total credit needs of the rural people. The remaining credit needs are met from informal sources. So with this, it's clear the people are taking the loans from the formal and informal. The graph is speaking about the poor household. They are taking from the 85%. As here is shown is the rich household. They are taking from the formal sources 90%. So this is the comparison which will make you understand about the merits and demerits of the formal and informal sectors. Okay? Next, most loan from informal lender carry a very high interest rate and do little to increase the income of the borrower. Thus, it is necessary that the banks and the cooperative increase the lending, particularly in the rural areas, so that the dependence on the informal sources of credit can be reduced. So, dear cadet, it is clear here the people, they are waiting to have the loans, but due to lots of formalities, paperwork, this, that, lack of knowledge, they will go for the informal sources. But if the banks and cooperatives are going to increase their lending, already they are lending in the rural areas, but if they will increase their lending in the rural areas, so the dependence on the informal sources of the credit will be reduced. Okay, please observe it. Secondly, while formal sector loans need to expand, it is also necessary that everyone receive these loans. At present, it is the richer household who receive from the formal credit, whereas the poor have to depend on the informal sources. It is important that the formal credit is distributed more equally so that the poor can benefit from the cheaper loan. Right? So this slide is talking about while taking the loans from the formal sector need to expand, it is also necessary that everyone receive this loan. At present, it is the richer household who receive formal credit, whereas the poor have to depend on the informal sources. Hello? Hello? Sorry for that. It is important that the formal credit is distributed more equally so that the poor can benefit from the cheapest loan. So dear cadet, today in this class we have covered the point of formal and informal systems of loan. Here, let's work these out. You are having the 4 questions here. You have to read out this 4 questions. After reading this 4 questions, you have write the answer, take the click and send it to me, my WhatsApp number. Your all work is very important to place your marks for the notebook checking, for the subject enrichment activity, and so multiple assessment. So there are the difference between the formal and informal sources of credit. So what is that? So the question number 1 is asking from you. What are the difference between formal and informal sources of credit? You have to explain that. Then second, why should credit at reasonable rate be available for all? Right? Just now we had seen about the point of they are dependent on the informal sectors. Then third, should there be a supervisor such as Reserve Bank of India that look into the loan activities of informal lenders? Why should it task to be quite difficult? Okay. Next, fourth, why do you think that the share of the formal sector credit is higher of the richer household compared to the poor household? So with this example, it's clear to you all. Please write all the answer from your own. If you require any reference, you can go for the guide or refresher, but don't copy down the answers from the net and send to me. Lastly, I want to tell to you, all the concepts are very important in the economics. Please go through in a very sincere way. Lastly, I want to thank to each and everyone for watching this video. Till then, be safe and secure at your home and do the homework within the time frame. Thanking to one and all. Jai Hind.